Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is JX Gumede, and I will not be talking so much as from the heart, but I'll be talking to the heart. Fortunately, my fellow panelists and other speakers earlier this morning were quite detailed in their technical abilities, and therefore I will not be retracing the technical steps that they covered. Instead, I will be focusing more on the human side of what AI in food systems means. Kuyavakala? Hey? Sorry. Yeah, I know, but I still need to switch on my computer. Okay, just give me a second.
Just get myself in.
I'm very passionate about this topic, so where's Miles? I think, Miles, you better put your hand up, otherwise we could be facing a scenario here where I go on and on and on. Colleagues, I think it's important to give the organizers a round of applause for lunch. Thank you. And then to give yourselves a round of applause for sitting straight up. I'm not sure whether you're attentive or whether you're cold, but somehow you seem to be paying attention, and I think that's a good thing. Oh, goodness, okay. Okay. AI, AI can do funny AI things. Okay, so let's start off with this. In my 10 minutes, I usually talk a lot longer on this, but I will try and just paint some of the scenarios I find very difficult to reconcile. We talk of intelligence, and I'm not so sure whether we are applying that intelligence. This is not about scaremongering, but it is, in this instance, unapologetically a conversation where one is going to be talking on behalf of humanity. And that's what I mean by that. In this picture, as you can see, it's not something we often come across in our daily lives. That exists, and it exists on a daily basis. But either for the sake of our own sanity or for our own intentions, we choose to ignore that picture. And that's not right. And this 10 minutes I'm going to be spending is at times going to be uncomfortable, because it's going to call on all of us to accept responsibility for that. We're part of that problem. And before we start charging headfirst into AI, we first got to see what are we doing as humans. What in our two brain cells finds that picture acceptable? There's nothing you can tell me about that picture that you can start to say you want to fear AI and not fear that. It doesn't make sense, unless I'm missing something. We're charging headfirst into AI phobia, AI concerns, when we've got real human concerns to take care of. Ethical AI is not going to be achieved by accident. Okay, that's enough now of the guilt aspect. We're now joined at the hips. Let's try and just unpack this a little as we move forward. And I understand that some of us who saw that picture and who continue to see this may say they were not aware or they don't know. I'm not so sure. But I think our issue isn't so much ignorance as it is indifference. In other words, asinandaba. And we can't afford that. Because these are the very things that we will be taking with us into the future of an AI-powered world. Indaba is not going to help. I don't know how to say that in Afrikaans, I can say it in English, but I think you get the message. I did warn you that this is going to be a conversation of the heart and to the heart. And these are the types of realities we need to start facing. And quite honestly, I think we all have a role to play in changing that picture. You know, there's a famous philosopher and writer called Ian McGilchrist. He's brilliant. He's an award-winning professor, and he is absolutely amazing. He's got an amazing CV. And he talks of a problem that, as a scientist, he's come to accept. He basically says that the world is run by people who think analytically, who think scientifically, who think technically, to the detriment of people who think with empathy, who think with concern, who think with context, who think with warmth, and think with all those other things we consider soft or fuzzy, or even in inverted commas, weak. But that's not weakness. This is weakness. So it's important that as we continue to have conversations about a very technical topic like AI, artificial intelligence, we continuously remember to bring our humanity, our empathy, our concerns into that conversation. I'm not going to read what you can read because I think it's quite clear for you to see. Obviously, the way we deal with these type of scenarios is all too familiar. We don't listen and engage. We, instead of trying to find empathetic solutions, we default to the safety of fences, rubber bullets, and so on and so forth. And by the way, what I forgot to mention, that picture that I posted is not as an example I've picked out of nowhere. I, in my past life, was a commercial farmer. I may not look like it, but I was one for 7 years. And what I saw at that farm really got me into the food justice gear on another level. Our farm was located, funny enough, you should mention that dams are next to farms. Our farm was located next to a compost site. And every day, without fail, there would be trucks and trucks and trucks bringing food to throw into the compost site to convert into manure and compost and so on and so forth. It's very difficult to put into words how painful it is to see people and kids fighting over what we consider scraps. And to see how we have, and I include myself, have made people become animals and scavengers is shameful. And it's exactly the kind of lack of dignity, of care that I refer to when I talk about indifference being the real cause rather than ignorance. And out of all of that, you got to ask yourself, we are coding AI. What are we asking it? What are we telling AI to learn from us? What is it that AI should take in terms of values? What should AI be drawing out of humanity if that's how we treat one another? Very short story that will illustrate a point I will make after you've looked at that slide. A very large retailer in South Africa was opening up many, many years ago a store in one of the biggest townships in South Africa. And they were stocking a lot of items, not knowing which items would be sold the quickest. It turned out that out of all the items that were sold out in that township, the fastest were olives. I mean, that was mind-blowing. They actually did a survey after the fact to try and find out what would make olives be the fastest selling item in the township. Because, let's be honest, olives are not a necessity. It turned out that olives were actually an aspirational purchase. People could see themselves and the lives and the future they wanted in their cuisine, and olives were a big part of it. I don't know that, but it's something that I was part of the project team, and I thought it was quite fascinating. And why I mentioned that particular story is that when you go into YouTube or you go to TikTok or you go to wherever you are, LinkedIn or wherever you are, you won't find your olive story. All you will find is more of the same. Those are echo chambers that keep people and different views out. Now, if AI was stocking that store, it's unlikely to have had olives there in the first place, because it should have merely gone with what sells the quickest in townships. It should have just merely repeated what it is that the echo chamber of township purchases represents. And that's the risk we run. So, the ability to be able to look beyond the norm and to see the differences are the little edges we need to concern ourselves with when it comes to AI, how it is coded, what it prioritizes, etc. And the whole story, as with the first slide, is about balancing efficiency with humanity. And I need to ask myself, who died and left AI in charge? Since when is AI the gospel and the final authority of what it means to be human? These are some of the questions we need to ask ourselves. We're accepting efficiency and we're substituting efficiency with legitimacy. You know, legitimacy needs the right. You need to have the right to do something in order for that thing to be legitimate. And then how that thing itself is used, which is not just the right to do it, but then you do things rightly. That's justice. But you also need legitimacy as part of that equation. In fact, in the office, we refer to it as legitimacy laundering. You know, like money laundering. You obscure the origins of money, and you make it circulate until you forget how that money got into the system and it's accepted as clean. AI legitimacy is the same thing. We've suddenly become consumers and we've accepted AI's authority without actually questioning how AI got to be in that position in the first place. I mean, a lot of the decisions, I'm not sure if you're aware, but almost all the CVs you submit for job applications, all of them, almost without fail now, are screened by AI before a human gets to see them. How did that become the norm? Who decided this? And more importantly, before we concern ourselves with things like the hidden mechanics of AI and how it computes and how difficult it is, it's the coding. What are the objectives that are being sought by those who are responsible for the coding of that AI? You know, Africa is very familiar with extraction, and data is no different. How it is being mined, I think our colleagues earlier on this morning were quite explicit in the risk of it. But I just want to say that with regards to the opportunities and the future that is facing Africa, no one's coming to save Africa. We Africans need to sort this out. There's no savior who's going to come and make it right. We're the ones, literally, we've been waiting for. And AI-powered systems can create a better future. And this would include all the mechanisms my fellow speakers earlier this morning spoke of in terms of using different tools to be able to assist. And the future we can achieve with AI integration can enable us to become the breadbasket we should be. You've heard this previously and I'll repeat it. Food is identity. It's not just about getting calories into your stomach. It's seeing yourself in what you eat. And we need to protect and preserve that. Food is celebration. Food is cultural. Food is access. When we don't see our food, we don't see ourselves. And the numbers, I have to, you forgive me, Miles. Maybe this is the first and the last time they'll hear these numbers. We cannot afford to ignore the travesty and the injustice of people who are dying annually in the millions due to hunger-related causes. We cannot, we simply cannot. Now you may argue, is it 8.9 million, is it 9.1 million? But the fact of the matter is we are losing millions of people due to hunger-related causes. And a big part of it comes down to food waste. The food that we actually waste let me give you a statistic which isn't up there. There are approximately 8 billion people in this world. Currently, we produce enough food to feed 10 billion people. So how do you explain 9 million people dying? We're nearly there. Now the question that I just need to put forward is, if we build AI without justice, are we not automating hunger? You know, justice is not optional. And food sovereignty via AI is possible, but it needs to be intentional. I just want to thank you all for being attentive, and I'd be happy to then get into the questions that you may pose. Thank you.